And God spoke these words in Exodus 20. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself an image in the form of anything in heaven above, or on the earth beneath, or in the waters below. You shall not bow down to them or worship them. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sins of the parents to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing love to 1,000 generations to those who love me and keep my commandments. The Bible, and especially the Old Testament, makes it very clear that there is only one God. There are other beings that are powerful. The Bible describes them. Non-humans, other creatures that display an ability to do things that some might call supernatural. They have real power, but their power is inferior to God's. Some of them serve God, some of them are enemies of God. And then we have humans that have real power, humans that command huge military forces, humans that even display the ability to do what some might call supernatural. Some even claim to have some of the non-human powers that the Bible describes. All of these powers, displayed or controlled, if true, and many of them are fake, let's face it, but let's say for just a moment that they are real, that there are people out there with some kind of special powers. This display of power is still inferior to God's. How do we know that this is true? How do we know that God is the supreme being, and there's not some person roaming the earth that has equal or greater power? Well, we could just look to the Bible and believe what it says in 2 Chronicles 20, verse 6, when it says, Lord, the God of our ancestors, are you not the God who is in heaven? You rule over all the kingdoms of the nations. Power and might are in your hand, and no one can withstand you. This verse just says it right out. Nobody can stand before God and win. There was, however, one time in history when God decided he would prove it. He would have a royal rumble of the ages. Now, me and my son watch Friday Night SmackDown. They have these crazy wrestling matches. They show a great deal of athletic amazing athleticism in these matches. And then, of course, they have all kinds of soap opera drama around them. So we record the show so that we can fast forward past all the drama and just watch the matches. Well, this weekly show every Friday night builds all year long to the big end of the year match, where all the best wrestlers throughout the year get invited to one match. They get to go into the ring at the same time and fight it out to see who is the king of the hill. Of course, This special fight is on pay-per-view, so me and my son don't watch that special fight. We watch all the other matches, though. But the World Wrestling Entertainment did not come up with this idea. Thousands of years ago, right before the Jews were allowed to leave Egypt and begin their journey to the Promised Land, there was the original Royal Rumble. The ultimate wrestling match to see who would be King of Kings. Who would prove to be the ultimate fighting champion. Now, I know that Friday Night SmackDown is staged and scripted, although my son is pretty sure that it's real. But we do know of some real power struggles that we get to watch. There's the Ultimate Fighting Championship. There's the World's Strongest Man competition. We have the Olympics. That's coming in a few months. The Olympics that was supposed to be in 2020 is scheduled for 2021. The great Olympic battle for gold medals. We have the Battle of the Bands. The list goes on and on. We love these kinds of battles, don't we? In fact, we're in the midst of the NFL playoffs to see who will be crowned as the world champion of football. And tomorrow night we'll crown an NCAA college football champion. We love our championships. But hidden in the biblical story of the Jews is the ultimate championship of the universe. Who is the holder of the ultimate power? Well, let's think for a second. If we were to have such a battle, and it is in the Bible, by the way, you may be thinking, well, where is this battle he's talking about? Well, who would we invite to such a battle? We know we would invite God, but who else would be in this battle? Who would be invited? Well, the most powerful beings in the universe, of course. We might invite the most powerful human, even though he's going to be quite outmatched, quite out of his league. He still gets to be invited. It's like the amateur that gets to come in to the professional tournament. We might invite the holder of the power of death. We might do that. Even though he's kind of a killjoy, we have to invite him. We might invite the holder of the power of the four elements. Anybody who's a sci-fi person knows, well, that's a really powerful being, right? Someone who gets to control, water, fire, earth, wind, the four elements of the earth, and lots of sci-fi stories are around that. So we have to invite the ones who control the elements. We might have to invite the holder of power over life force, if there's some kind of life force that someone gets to control. That would be important. They would get to come. That might be a person we would call the god of fertility, the god of blessings, that's going to make your cows have babies and things like that. We might invite the one who controls the sun and other universal superpowers like that. Might invite that. Oh, and we can't forget the bringer of crops and food, because let's face it, we all like to eat. And when we can't eat, that person, whoever controls that, becomes pretty powerful. So let's invite those 9 people, and then let's invite God to make it an even 10. Now, believe it or not, as silly as that may sound, that's exactly who was invited to the Royal Rumble, the Rumble in the desert. It's found in the story of Exodus. the God with a small g, the God over food, the God over the sun, the God over life force, the God over water, wind, fire, earth, the God over death, the human God, and God with a capital G, the creator of the universe, the God of the Judeo-Christian faith, the God of the Bible. They were invited, and the bell rang, and the battle began. It starts in the book of Exodus, chapter 7, verse 14, and goes all the way through Exodus chapter 12, verse 36. And that's a long passage. We won't read it, but it's actually one that you're very familiar with. Probably if you went to it in your Bible, it would have a headline that started out like this. It wouldn't say Royal Rumble or Rumble in the Desert. It would say the 10 plagues. We think of the 10 plagues as 10 curses upon Egypt. Really and truly, it was a battle of who was really God. And so the first round happened. It began with the bell, and the bell sounded like this. It sounded like, "Let my people go." And the round commenced. And in that first battle, God drew first blood. He turned the Nile into blood. Now this is an attack clearly on the God of water. He turned water into blood, showing his authority over one of the elements. Now then, what's not so obvious is that in the Egyptian society, and they were polytheistic, which means they believed in many gods. They had a god for everything. So when I say that he invited the God of over wind and the God over the water and God over the earth, it's three different guys, okay? Different guy for everything. But do you know who the God of the Nile was? Because there was a God of the Nile. They worshipped the Nile, so to speak. But they believed that Pharaoh himself, the human Pharaoh, was a god, and that his superpower or super control or his reign domain was the Nile. It was his happiness and pleasure with his people that caused the Nile to behave. And if the Nile was doing something that was damaging to people, it was because Pharaoh was not happy with his people. So God coming at the Nile, turning the water into blood, that was an attack on Pharaoh himself and his supposed power. And it was an attack on the God of water. But be careful. In this first round, as often happens in a fight, they're just kind of feeling each other out. And although God drew first blood, Pharaoh's magicians were able to also turn water into blood. The first round was kind of a draw. They both showed power. So we move on to round 2. The frogs. One of the highest gods in the Egyptian culture was the god, or I should say goddess, with the head of a frog. You can see it if you go online. You can see pictures of this female form, human form, with the head of a frog. It was called Hathor, or Hathor. Hathor is what I have heard it as. And it was the goddess of fertility. So the command of the frogs by God was a direct attack on possibly the most beloved and often worshipped beings in all of Egypt. Oh, probably not the most powerful, but one of the most loved and often worshipped. Because let's face it, a couple gets together, they want to have a baby. People have animals. They want those animals to reproduce and grow a larger herd. So they pray and worship to the god of fertility. They had a frog head on. So once again, God lands a blow by bringing forth frogs out of that blood-soaked Nile. But the magicians dodged and weaved, and they were able to control frogs as well. So the first 2 rounds, things are getting interesting. Things are getting tight. Both sides are showing that they've got real power. This is important because we need to understand that God is not the only one in the universe with power. It's not God and zero. It's God and other powers. I started out by saying they were lesser powers, but I did not say they were zero powers. Just enough power to manipulate, just enough power to deceive, just enough power to still find a way to get people to worship them. But now, round 3 and 4. Round 3 and 4 is about lice and gnats and flies. Interesting thing about these things. The Egyptians had a bunch of gods they prayed and sacrificed to, but they had no Lord of the Flies. See, God started his undefeated rounds by attacking an empty space in the Egyptians' folklore of gods. He controlled something where there was no God. At least not until the real God showed up. And he takes control of these mindless insects that have no purpose or intent. And of course, there is no one to defend against this. He wins these rounds easily. And then we get to the livestock. Plague number 5. He attacks by killing all these livestock. He attacks the god of fertility, the god of food, because livestock produce food. The God who helps by bringing the beast of burden to assist humans in their labor, and they did have a God of that. They were no match for God. The 5th round was nearly a knockout. God proved to have power over all of that. And then, in round 6, he goes for a mighty blow with boils. You see, there were gods that were supposedly over the physical health of people. And the God of the Bible proves himself to be the one who controls all of that. And these supposed gods of physical health were no match for the power of God, as these people suffered physically from the boils that they had on their body. And then, this is right out of science fiction, the 7th round, the 7th plague, was hail. But if you read the story, it's not hail like we have. Every once in a while, we have hail. Down here in Houston, Texas, it's usually little pieces of ice about this big. Now then, I have read stories that talk about grapefruit-size hail. And I just imagine this big old ball of ice hitting my car. I don't know if it works quite like that, and I don't know if they really mean that there's hail that's bigger than a softball. I don't know. But this hail was worse because it was ice hail mixed with fire. Now then, if I took hail, a bowl of hail, a bowl of ice, and I mixed it with fire, I wouldn't get fiery hail. I would get water. If I put them together long enough, I might even get steam. But when God puts them together, he gets fiery hail. You know what he was doing? He was attacking the God over the elements. Fire and ice together, taking on them. There was a tag team on the other side of the ring going against him. And he showed who had the real power. And then the locust. Do you know in the Bible it says that the locust came in, gathered from around the world on the wind. The 8th round was against the God of the wind. As God harnessed the wind in such a particular and unusual way to bring the locust of the world to Egypt. And then he used those locusts to defeat the God of plenty, the God of food and crops, as these locusts ate nearly every plant in Egypt. Then we go to the 9th round and we're getting close to the end. The enemy is getting weary. It's on its last legs, but their strongest competitors are left. Can God hold out and win? Well, the 9th round was the round of darkness. God defeated the supposed God of the sun. Now, if we fast forward 1,000 years, we know in the Greek society, that's Apollo, right? That's the big guy that's holding the earth up. One of the strongest of all of the gods, supposedly. And yet, God, with a sweep of his hand, just an uppercut, if you will, let there be darkness. And there was darkness. 9th round went to God. And then God was done showing off. He was done proving in battle his supremacy. The 10th round would be his last. As he declared, as the bell rang, and for the last time, those fateful words, "Let my people go," were ignored by Pharaoh. And God said, "The firstborn of every living thing will now die. Your only escape is the blood of a pure lamb spread on the doorpost of your home, with you inside." And then God sent out an angel of death, a death angel, to take the firstborn, even the firstborn of the god Pharaoh. No home was left undone. Even the supposed God of Egypt, who was controlling the Nile, the human God who was still miraculously standing in this battle, his eldest son was also lost. And this was the ultimate victory over the supposed God of the life force and the God of death. The most feared of all the gods in Egypt. It also corrected the apparent draw from the battle with the frogs, the second plague, between the fertility god Hathor. If there was a draw, if you want to call it that, in the second round, oh, this is a knockout now in the 10th round. Hathor, if there was a real Hathor, had zero ability to stop God at all in his press to defeat once and for all any claim to the power of God. He was able to undo all the work that Hathor had accomplished in the world by bringing so much life into the world. God showed once and for all who handles life, who has life and death in their hands. And when Moses one last time said, "Let my people go," Pharaoh begged them to go. The Egyptians even gave them their gold and valuables on the way out. They knew who won the Royal Rumble. But there was one more battle to be fought. After the Jews left, Pharaoh seemed to forget the 10 rounds that had just happened. The 10 rounds where all his little gods that he had relied on for peace of mind had been beat down. He forgot. And so he sent out his army, the last symbol of his power on the earth. He sent out his army to wipe out the Jews, the people of God, trying to one last time prove that he was the big man on campus. He was trying to take back the title belt that God so clearly had won in 10 rounds of fighting. The Red Sea had just parted itself in the middle, almost as if humbly bowing to the King of Kings, so that God's people could walk across the river on dry land. And then, as Pharaoh's army went to kill those same Jews that God loved so much, that same river that was bowing snapped back in a massive show of power, and Pharaoh's army was drowned in a moment. When the army was defeated, the last remaining power, the last move that Pharaoh could make was pinned in submission, and the winner was crowned. Now, God doesn't stoop to proving himself very often, but one time in the Arabian desert of Egypt and modern-day Saudi Arabia, God stepped down and got into the ring with the supposed superpowers of the universe. And after 2 rounds of playfully sparring, God put on a display of supremacy and power that you simply could not imagine. There was only one person standing at the end of the match. The unrivaled, undefeated God of the universe, who holds all power in his hand. Today, we have a growing list of powerful contenders roaming around our society. We don't call them gods anymore. We have more sophisticated names. But we do fear them nonetheless. Things like racism, gender revolution, civil unrest, abortion, divisiveness in the church, dividedness in society, politics, and one more little guy with a big punch whose name is COVID. And it looks like these little powers, these little issues will win the day and take us all down in the process. But do not forget, as we finish this first full week of a new year, ain't nobody can stand up to God and win. Rest today in the fact that God has already written the end of the story. And, spoiler alert, he wins. And he holds you, the Bible says. He holds you in the palm of his hand. As the angels said so often in the Bible when they would make an appearance, fear not. Would you pray with me? God, I would ask that you would allow us to step into the confidence of knowledge that we worship and adore the winner, the undisputed title holder of the ultimate power in the universe. We worship you. Forgive us for the many ways in which we doubt your power. And let us rest in the fact that you say you hold us in the palm of your hand. And I pray this in your name. Amen. A couple of announcements. the month of January. Verse of the month is the same as December. Deuteronomy 31, verse 6. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or tremble at them, for the Lord your God is the one who goes with you. He will not fail you or forsake you. Great verse. It's almost as if I was preaching on this verse the entire time today. Next announcement. We will be starting to meet again as a church face to face, and it will be soon, but not quite yet. I'm a bit concerned that as a society we feel this big sense of relief now that we hear about the vaccine. We have a vaccine and it's coming. But you know it's going to take a while for all of us to get the vaccine. And in the meantime, the virus right now is spreading at the highest rate that it has ever spread. So until we get the vaccine into our hands or into our bodies, we need to remain careful and conservative. Please be patient with me as we continue to take a conservative path when it comes to having services at the church. We have been blessed. Our conservative moves have caused us. I'm the only one, well, me and one other church member are the only ones that I know of that have got COVID, and in both cases, it ended up being a very mild case compared to what some unfortunately have. And neither of those were traceable back to church, just from other things that we do. So we've had very good protocols when we've met, and we do intend to have a face-to-face live service on January 31st, the last Sunday of January. Today's the 10th, 17th, 20th. That's 3 weeks away. We'll have one then, and I hope that by then we'll have a lot of new information that will help us make a good decision about our plan for moving forward. I hope that soon we are able to be meeting every week. Again, I think that day is coming soon. Now then, also, I want to tell you about one of the new ministries that's going to be starting soon. Coming soon to our church will be a weekly Saturday morning Celebrate Recovery meeting. Well, what's Celebrate Recovery? This program helps people overcome their hang-ups, their bad habits, and their life hurts, regardless of what they are. You know, we all want to live a life that's controlled only by our devotion to God and then the free, unshackled choices that we make. We don't want to live a life controlled by our past. We don't want to move away from the. We want to move away from the shadow of our addictions and our bad habits. We don't want to be always overshadowed and controlled by that. And we want to experience what the Bible calls true freedom in Christ. And that is what these weekly Saturday morning meetings will be focused on. Many of you will want to make plans to attend. And we will have hopefully friends, family, neighbors, co-workers who need a program like this where they can focus on the things that tend to control them and talk about them and have lessons and inspiration on that subject so that they can make improvements in their life. Maybe we should begin to talk to some of our family and friends and neighbors and co-workers about attending. I'm very excited about Celebrate Recovery. We have a hugely strong and experienced Celebrate Recovery staff that's going to be coming to run the program, and I can't wait till we get it started. The exact start date is still unsettled, but we will know soon. So those are the announcements. We have got Celebrate Recovery coming soon. We will have a face-to-face meeting on the 31st of January. And hopefully soon we'll be meeting again regularly, face-to-face. And don't forget, please, the verse of the month. Hey, I love you guys. God bless you. Be safe this week. And I look forward to meeting with you again on Facebook Live next week.